So the other day I was going through some really common basic words and phrases in Japanese and kind of officially learning the pitch accent of them. Now, I was pretty sure that I already knew how to pronounce these very basic words and phrases because I've just heard them so many times, but for a while now I've had this kind of practical, kind of arbitrary goal of building a 100% complete conscious model of how pitch accent works in standard Japanese that would literally account for everything. So on this quest, I realized that I'd never actually looked up the pitch accent of the word so. You know, like "そうですね." One of the most common words in the entire Japanese language. So normally when I want to look up the pitch accent of a word and I'm on my computer, I'll just pull up the program Kolibri, because in Kolibri I have the dictionary files for 3 different dictionaries which contain pitch accent information. The Nhk Accent Dictionary, Daijidin, and Shinmeikai. Now, you'd think that looking up the pitch accent of an individual word would be a pretty straightforward process, and 99% of the time it is, but every once in a while things get a little bit more complicated. You see, many words in Japanese have multiple acceptable pitch accents, kind of like potato, and oftentimes one of these accents is more dominant than the others. Except which accent is considered most dominant will often vary depending on which dictionary you're asking. In addition to this, many words in Japanese will have a different pitch depending on the exact meaning that a word is being used as. For example, in the phrase "se ga takai," the word "se" has an odaka pitch accent pattern, whereas in the phrase "se o mukeru," the word "se" has a heibon pitch accent pattern. The problem is that oftentimes the dictionaries aren't very specific when it comes to explaining exactly when one pitch should be used over another. And on top of all of this, the pitch of individual words can completely change based on what comes before the word, what comes after the word, what form the word is being conjugated to, and a host of other factors. Wait, what was I talking about again? Oh yeah, so I pull up Kolibri, I search "soul," and after scrolling through a bunch of homophones, the Nhk Accent Dictionary shows me this.
そうだ
Scroll down through about 10 more homophones, and then I see this.
そういう
Okay, so now I know that the word "so" has a different pitch accent depending on how it's being used. But as you can see, because the Nhk Accent Dictionary pretty much didn't bother to explain anything at all, I'm still pretty much left in the dark when it comes to knowing exactly when one pitch should be used over the other. So then I scroll down and look at Shinmeikai's entry. Okay, looks like we might actually be getting somewhere. So now we know that when the word "so" is being used as an adverb, it has a heibon pitch accent pattern, and when it's being used as an interjection, it has an atamadaka pitch accent pattern. But wait a second, that actually contradicts what was in the Nhk Accent Dictionary. The Nhk Accent Dictionary listed 2 different usages of the word "so," each one having a different accent, and it also listed a short example sentence for each usage. Now, recall from a moment ago that there are 2 different main usages of the word "so," one as an adverb and one as an interjection. Now the problem is, if you take a look at the 2 different usage examples that the Nhk Accent Dictionary provides us with, in both of those examples, "so" is being used as an adverb, and in neither of them is it being used as an interjection. Now, according to Shinmeikai, when "so" is being used as an adverb, it should have a heibon pitch accent. But the Nhk Accent Dictionary is telling us that in the sentence,
そうだ
"so" has an atamadaka accent. Now, if we were to go back and actually read the Shinmeikai definition, we would know that the word "so" actually does have a completely different meaning depending on whether it's being used as an adverb or as an interjection. And in this particular example sentence, it's very clear that it's being used as the adverb meaning, not the interjection meaning. Now, at this point, I did go on to check the Daijidin dictionary file to see if it had any more clues, but it said the same exact thing that Shinmeikai did. So when exactly is "so" pronounced with heibon pitch accent? When exactly is it pronounced with atamadaka pitch accent?
わからん
Well, so far we pretty much have no clue because the 3 different dictionaries that we checked contained what seemed to be contradictory information. So this is when I pulled out the big boys. First, I checked the 2016 edition of the Nhk Accent Dictionary. Not only is it much more up to date than the digital version I own is, but the back of the book also contains quite a bit of general pitch accent information which isn't contained at all in the digital version. Okay, so it looks like we have some very different information than what was contained in the digital version. Actually, it says exactly what Shinmeikai and Daijidin said. When "so" is being used as an interjection, it has a tamadaka pitch, and when "so" is being used as an adverb, it has heibon pitch. But that still doesn't explain that example sentence we saw where "so" was clearly being used as an adverb yet had a tamadaka pitch. So next I pulled out my copy of the 2015 version of the Shinmeikai Accent Dictionary, which is not to be confused with the general Shinmeikai Dictionary which I was referencing before. Okay, so this is interesting. Here we have two different usages of the word soul, and each one has a different pitch accent. And if we look closely, both of these usages are with soul being used as an adverb. So now we're seeing pretty much exactly what we saw in the digital version of the Nhk Accent Dictionary. But again, just like the Nhk Accent Dictionary, the description is extremely minimal and we still don't really know the exact boundaries between when we should use one of these accents over the other. But luckily, we're also provided with links to two different sections in the back of the book which apparently provide relevant information. When we jump to the first of these two, we find a description of the combination rules for when a particle attaches onto an adverb or other similar parts of speech. Now, it's kind of nuanced, but here is the important part. When a particle attaches onto an adverb which has Habe-on pitch accent, that particle can attach either high or low. Now, does this mean that in every single situation like this, the particle can attach either high or low? Or does it mean that in some cases the particle will attach high, some cases the particle will attach low, and in some cases actually either one is acceptable?
わからん。
Well, it doesn't really say. But it does list a bunch of examples, and from examining these examples, as far as I can tell, sometimes the particle does always attach high, sometimes it does always attach low, and only in some cases is either one actually acceptable. So now that leaves us with the question, well, how do we know whether the particle is going to attach high or low in these cases? Is it the actual adverb that determines it, or is it the attaching particle which determines it? Well, of course, it doesn't actually explain any of that, but again, from examining the examples, it would seem that it's the adverb which determines whether the particle is going to attach high or low. Okay, so now let's check the other section which we were linked to. So here we find pretty much the same thing, except it's explaining the rule for when auxiliary verbs attach to adverbs instead of particles. So just in case you're not familiar, things like da and des are considered to be auxiliary verbs in the way that Japanese people describe Japanese grammar. And it turns out that the rule is exactly the same as it was when we were talking about particles. So let's try to sum up what we just learned. So when you have an adverb which has Habe-on pitch accent, and either a particle or an auxiliary verb attaches onto that adverb, it can attach either high or low, and sometimes either one. But which one of these three options it's going to be is going to depend on the specific adverb, and you're going to have to learn that on a case-by-case basis. Okay, so besides the fact that we had to induct the specifics of those rules all on our own based on just a few examples that were given, that was very insightful. Now, if we go back and take a look at the entry for soul, it makes just a little bit more sense. Now that we have the missing key, we understand that all of the different dictionaries that we looked at actually did not contain contradictory information at all. The Nhk Accent Dictionary was trying to tell us that when soul is being used as an adverb but isn't followed by either a particle or an auxiliary verb, then it has Habe-on pitch, but when it is being followed by either a particle or an auxiliary verb, then it has a tamadaka pitch. So basically what's going on here is we just learned that when a particle or an auxiliary verb attaches onto an adverb that has Habe-on pitch, it can attach either high or low. And it looks like that in the case of soul, particles and auxiliary verbs always attach low. So normally that would mean that the word soul would be high and then the attaching particle would attach low, but this would mean that the accent core of the word soul would be on the u, which is the second half of an extended vowel. And in Japanese, the second half of an extended vowel can't be the accent core of a word, and so the accent gets bumped up one, and that makes the soul the accent core of the word, which effectively makes the word a tamadaka when it is followed by a particle or an auxiliary verb. But if you remember from the general Shinmeikai dictionary, or the physical copy I had of the Nhk Accent Dictionary, soul can also be used as an interjection, but the Shinmeikai Accent Dictionary doesn't tell us anything about this. The 2016 version of the Nhk Accent Dictionary does tell us that when soul is being used as an interjection, it has a tamadaka pitch, whereas when it's being used as an adverb, it has Habe-on pitch. Despite having quite a lengthy section on general pitch accent information in the back of the book, nowhere in the Nhk Accent Dictionary is contained the combination rules for when particles or auxiliary verbs attach onto adverbs. So if all you had was the Nhk Accent Dictionary, you would literally have no way to understand why in the sentence
そうだ
soul is pronounced with a tamadaka pitch, despite being used as an adverb. So, basically, I had to pull out two different 1,000-page books just to find out the pitch accent for one of the most common words in the Japanese language. Oh yeah, and by the way, here's the answer stated succinctly. The word soul can be used two different ways, either as an adverb or as an interjection. When it's used as an interjection, it has a tamadaka pitch. When it's used as an adverb, it has Habe-on pitch, except if it's followed by either a particle or an auxiliary verb, in which case it also becomes a tamadaka pitch. So, why did I make this video? Well, honestly, I don't really know. Kind of just because I had the idea for it and I found this topic really interesting. But really, basically, I've been really into pitch accent recently. I've been working on that goal I was talking about of trying to finally understand pitch accent, at least consciously, you know, to have a real starting point. And it's proven to be a much harder quest than it really should be. And it's not because pitch accent is that complicated. I mean, pitch accent is pretty complicated, but it's not that complicated. The real hard part is that the resources suck. Like, even the Nhk Accent Dictionary and, you know, the Nhk Accent Dictionary, they suck. I haven't found one actually complete resource that just explains everything you need to know. And so I'm kind of basically trying to create that for myself. And then, of course, once I create it for myself, then I'll be able to pass it on to all you guys who eventually are going to be tackling pitch accent and probably struggle with the same problem I have been struggling with, which is just trying to, like, combine all these incomplete resources together to finally come up with a complete understanding. So that is my excuse for why it's probably going to still be like another week or two before I come out with the I+1 video that I've been saying that I've been making. But just know that, you know, I'm working on this this kind of other pitch accent project on the side, and it's hopefully going to benefit you guys one day. So just want to say thank you so much to everyone who supported me on Patreon. I seriously wouldn't be able to be doing this without you guys. And I really want to give a super special shout out to all my $15 plus patrons, but a lot of you guys have really difficult to pronounce names, and I'm looking at them right now and I do not know how to pronounce a bunch of these. So instead of just butchering them, I'm just going to put you guys on the screen right now, and I'm going to go and find out how to pronounce your guys' names later, and next video I'm going to pronounce them all correctly, hopefully. Gomenne.